Okay, ठीक है. Now the voice will be audible. कृष्णा वहां से दिखाता है कि कान नहीं आ रहा है. Okay, everybody. So good evening to one and all present here. It's day 5. We are into this 3-week career upgrade program. Okay. As part of the week 1, we touched on multiple aspects. Still, the journey is going on and on stuff. Firstly, we discussed the 5 rules of career success, and every rule is mandatory. We have to apply it into our lives. Okay. So, guys, planning and strategizing is very important. So, you need to do that. And all the rules, okay, it's all available in the LinkedIn sheet. Just practically start implementing it into your life. Every pillar, every key is mandatory. Okay. So, that is one we covered on the day 1. Day 2, we really broke down for a project what all areas you need to focus on from dev related perspective. Okay, multiple things we discussed, and in the day 3 we tried to classify it as junior, mid-level, senior experience, how exactly the transition should be. However, guys, it is completely up to you. So if at junior stage you start working more hard and try to acquire more knowledge, that's how you will be rising up your career. And the IT industry has really started to justify people based upon their knowledge, not just based upon their experience. Okay. But important thing which comes along is not just the technical experience. Okay. Maturity is very important. Maturity, like given any problem, given any situation, how do you think, how do you respond? Those all things are also very important. So there are few things which you will learn based upon your experience only, but there are few things which you can really work very hard and gain that knowledge and start adding value, and the industry will reward you accordingly. Okay. So always have that kind of a ladder curve. Okay, what is the next plan for you, and accordingly go through. So that we discussed as part of the week, as part of the day 3. Okay. And then we went ahead with our day 4, which was our yesterday's topic, corporate agile. Okay. So agile is a way of doing software development right from the beginning till the very ending, how exactly the things happen. And guys, it's a way of working. And if you work in a wrong manner, it will have consequences. So effects like deadline meeting, pressure growing up, stretching late nights, working over weekends, not being proactive. Okay. So if there is something, if you can solve it early, if you don't solve it at that time, it causes problems. So there is a certain must have or best practices way of working. If you work like that, your life in IT will be simple. If you don't follow that, problems are going to come up. This is what, guys, I have realized. It is just as simple as that. You need to be proactive. There are certain disciplines you implement as part of your full corporate life. You will always be in a peaceful state. Okay. And if you violate those principles, there will be consequences, and then you will struggle through this life. Eventually, everybody makes it. But why to take a hard way of living if there is a better way available? Okay. And that's what yesterday we started discussing. What is this better way? And guys, now you have to think, how can you really apply this in your project life? Okay. So this is how it is going to be. Fine. I'll share the screen. Quickly, we will take down the checkpoints, okay, of whatever we discussed yesterday. The key things which you should know it as a thumb rule. Just take that up, and then we will continue with the further session. So basically, what happens as part of project development? Okay. So let's get it down. First, customer comes with some requirements. Product owner understands those requirements, writes it into a proper Jira document as requirement, gives this to the technical team. Okay. And then from there, the technical team understands it, designs it, develops it, demos it, and takes it back to production. So there is a phase. We will discuss all of those stages. Okay? But there is a journey from requirement till the end. Now, yesterday, important thing we discussed is you need to separate requirement clarification from your sprint cycle or development cycle. Split the two. If it is merged together, there will be a lot of consequences. For example, let me tell you first. Thoda problem samjho mere se. Okay, listen, understand the problem. We have 2 weeks sprint. Okay, that means in 2 weeks you will develop some set of features and deploy it into production. That's what it is, 2 weeks sprint. Now let's say if you are not clear with requirements, and guys, let me tell you, sometimes requirement actually takes even 4 days, one week for just clarification purpose. So it's not going to be very easy or straightforward. Requirement clarification takes time. There is a lot of decision making involved. To and fro keeps happening. This person says, oh, I need to talk to that person. He says, I need to talk to that. Lot of drama happens for finalizing. Now, let's say if you have not done that earlier, okay, then one of the model what Agile says is, okay, during sprint planning itself, some people are doing requirement clarifications. And guys, that doesn't work out. Let me tell you, that doesn't work out. We tried doing it. It comes with a lot of problems. If during the sprint planning, you are seeing the requirement for the first time and trying to groom the requirements there, generally, Scrum Masters will say, okay, by 2 hours, 3 hours should be a sprint planning meeting. Okay, but without clarity, if you even start with the things, it will have to be rolled back. So let's say day 1, 2, 3 hours you have put in, you got some requirement because there is a pressure. Okay, we have to finish. There is a time restriction because countdown, the 2 weeks have already started. Now what happens is, with half prepared requirement, you designed it, you estimated it, and you started with the development. Now what happens when you are actually doing the development cycle? Then a lot of questions starts coming up, because earlier in 2-3 hours, very short time, you were not able to think everything. Now what happens is, earlier based upon half knowledge, you said it will take 2 days for completion. Now when you started developing it, more questions are coming. Ori, what to do here, and then some things you will be able to answer, some things you will again go back to the product owner, give us this clarification. And then slowly what happens is that 2 days becomes 2.5 days, 2.5 days become 3 days, and the full team is working on so many features together. And if you're working on so many features together, so generally what happens is, in this 2 weeks window, okay, we communicate how many features will be done in the beginning. Thoda sa samjho guys, okay? When the sprint is starting, we have to really see, we have 5 developers and so many QAs. With this team, we can finish, let's say, 4 features or 5 features. So you check the bandwidth, considering leaves, everything, you see how much work can be done, and then you give a proper mapping. Okay, we can finish only 5 features in this 2 weeks based upon these developers that we have. So that commitment is already shared on the day 1 itself. Now what is happening is, unnecessarily more gaps in analysis coming, and while you are coding, you realize this question, that question, it starts delaying your tickets. So one side what is happening is, 5 features are already promised. So tickets are nothing but features, it's one and the same, tickets, features. So 5 features are already promised to be done in 2 weeks, but as you are developing it, the time is exceeding. Now what is the way of handling? Some teams say, we have given a commitment, now we have to stretch and do it. Clients have given further business commitments, so there is no way, late night karenge, weekend karenge. All that happened because you were not fully clear with requirement and you took it for development. Your life will become problematic. So that is where first thumb rule, requirement clarification should be a separate phase. Sometimes 2 to 3 weeks might be gone in that. Separate it out. Development should be a separate phase. First thumb rule, encourage that in your projects. Okay, fine. Once that is done, second important thing, you can make a note of this thing, guys. Okay, now split development, split requirement grooming from the development process. That is first point. Okay, now just apply these checkpoints, life will be very simple. Now the second thing, I'll share my screen as well so that we can parallelly check on a few things. Here we go. Now the second stuff in Jira, okay, the user story, the requirements should always be written in Jira. That's the second rule. Okay, the requirements should always be written in Jira. Without that, don't really start working on that, because guys, you and me right now, we are in front of one another. I will try to explain you everything so nicely, but still there could be some cases where something will go bouncer to you. There could be some cases, right? And IT projects are also complicated projects. If things are only in written, there are more chances that people will misunderstand it. And if it is not even in written, there are again major problems. Okay, so just understand what is happening. If product owner comes and theoretically in a call explains you something, if things are not written in Jira, he comes, he tells you something, and by the end of the call, he says, hey, I gave you the requirement, built it accordingly. Now, whatever you built, there is no proof what exactly was the requirement. And there is always a chance, whatever you build, the product owner says, this is not correct. He will always say that. There is quite a possibility because there is no proof against what you are building something. So they can say, you misunderstood it. I never meant it like that. And whenever business says something, they will try to push it on you. That is where you need to have requirements written in the form of Jira. So that becomes a proof of what needs to be built up. Very important. Okay, so always encourage second rule, requirements should be written in Jira. Okay, and yesterday we discussed the format of how the requirement should also be written. It should clarify who, for which person, what exactly requirement, why this requirement is in place. Generally, this kind of format people follow to answer these three questions. So in 1-2 lines, the full feature is understood. Okay, what exactly these guys want. Okay. Next, yesterday we discussed so many more questions will come. All those become part of acceptance criteria. If you develop and deliver this feature back, we will accept this feature only if all of these rules are met. Without that, we are not going to accept this ticket for production launch. That is where it is called as acceptance criteria. Okay, so encourage it, have this thing very defined and raised to your product owners. Right? Give us the acceptance criteria. Okay, so fine. Next, if there are requirements, you do this. Next, further you guys identify the dependencies and further questions. So we will get to that part also. But the second point, the requirements should be written in Jira and following a specific pattern. All these things have to be available. Without that, don't start. That is the second rule. Okay. So third thing. So we are trying to develop a checklist basically here. Okay, checklist. First, requirement gathering should be separate from development cycle. Second, requirement should always be written in Jira. Second, third important checklist. Product owner should come in a call and explain you the requirement. Many product owners, they say, hey, I've written everything. Now you read and you start developing. If there are questions, ask me. Don't accept things like that. Why? Because there could be a lot of misinterpretation of text. There could be a lot of misinterpretation based upon experience. I'm telling you, they have to come and explain you everything so that you can do to and fro talking with one another. Third, thumb rule. Okay, product owner should explain requirements in call. Here even he shows the Jira what they have written. They shows the mocks. So then you will get some questions from it. Okay, so this is mandatory. Okay, fine. So far so good. All these things done. Okay. Next, what happens if during the call itself you are getting questions? So all this will happen in the grooming call. If you get questions, raise the questions there. And guys, now a suggestion for all of you. Doesn't matter what experience you have, but involve properly as part of the grooming phase. Okay, don't think I am a junior. If I say this, what will happen? Guys, speak out. You will have more value in your IT career if during meetings and discussions you actually give some value. Okay, if you're just a listener, after some period of time, people will make an opinion. Or usko, whether you get that person or not, there is no change. So it's okay, let him go. Slowly and steadily, if you are not value add to the system, automatically your importance drops down. So you need to talk, you need to ask questions, you need to understand, you need to share your understanding. So shyness is not going to work. So you need to really ask some questions, understanding wise. I'm thinking like this. Will this be possible? Will that be possible? So the more you spend time doing it, you will get better. But all of a sudden, guys, and do that. Don't shy out. Don't keep quiet. That will backfire on your career. Okay, okay. So chalo, fine. So raise questions. He might be able to answer some questions here only, but some questions he might say, I will come back to you and okay, okay, well and good. Now comes the second stage, guys. So this calling is done. Now, my suggestion to all you people, many people get this doubt, right? Ki how do you improve in analysis skill? Chalo, let's discuss that. Okay, because people don't really get it and it comes with practice only, but you need to really get better in your analysis skill. Now, what you're supposed to do, everyone, okay, all the working professionals, and even if you're job seekers, any new functionality which you're building as part of your practice, right, mini project or PO, whatever you do practice, yeah, whatever we will discuss right now, start following this rule and you will realize in a matter of few weeks, your brain will start working really nicely in terms of logical thinking, reasoning, questions, and all that thing. Okay, so very important. Abhi kya karna hai? So all you guys who are working, as soon as the first call has happened with product in your companies where the requirement is shared, okay, automatically on the very same day, you yourself alone, guys, dekho, don't wait for somebody to come and tell you. You yourself alone perform these below actions alone. No need of telling it to anybody also, not your manager, not your friends. You do it. Maybe after office karna, do it after office. It's for your own career growth. You need to do these following things which we are going to say and write down whatever you can think about. You might be wrong, but start doing it. Let your brain think. Okay, so this is an internal exercise every one of you should do, especially in the beginning phases where you're not able to much analyze at a faster pace. So this practice will be required in juniors, 0 to 3 years, 4 years, very important. As you get more experience, automatically you get better in this. Now, what are these questions? First, read requirement end to end. Make this a thumb rule of your life every time. Don't listen to people. You read it through and whatever then people are saying, just try to validate, because in the end, the proof will be if it is written in Jira. Because let me tell, it has been many features. If in production it is behaving differently, the product owner simply goes to Jira, says, hey Tosif, we asked you to develop it like this. Why is it behaving something else? Everybody forgets what was discussed, what was not discussed. That means the requirement has to be available in Jira only. It has to be written because that is what holds the truth of the system. Okay, fine. So read the requirement end to end, line by line. That is the first step. Even though they might have already discussed, even if you feel that you know everything, read it line by line. Okay. Next, try to make some logical sense ki what this high level requirement is. Nothing but at a high level, you should be able to understand it clearly. Do you understand what is being asked? At junior level, ये problems आते हैं. Read कर लिए, समझ ही नहीं रहा है कि करना क्या है. Okay. Even functionally, forget about technical. Even functional requirement, people are not able to understand. So till the time you are not able to understand what exactly is required, you should keep reading and keep trying to make sense. क्या बोल रहे? क्या बोल रहे? Why is the words not clear? Okay, first you do your hard work and then try to really get to a point where you are able to understand what exactly it is. Okay, now the third step, guys, do this for your own self. Third step, okay, come up with list of functional questions. This is very important. You will become a partner to the product owner. Your value in the team will grow. Come up with list of functional questions. what are you supposed to do basically? Okay, you need to literally question the requirements from the perspective of end customer. देखो, you yourself is a customer in a real world, right? You use Facebook, LinkedIn, internet banking applications, social media, blah blah blah. Nothing, but you are an end user already, and you have a logical sense already. If you are using some application, how it should behave, what is good for you, what is bad for you, what kind of error messaging should come, when should the email come, positive में क्या होना चाहिए, if negative happens then what should happen. एक logical end user sense you already have. Now, while building the application, whatever requirement they might have provided, sometimes they will miss some very obvious cases. Okay, nothing but functionally, they might not really cover some areas which you should logically think, hey, that is not covered. How are we going to do that? For example, yesterday we said the lock feature, 3 times password invalid, then lock the user. Okay, now automatically here your question should be, if he is getting locked, for how long he should be locked? Is there any mechanism by which he can unlock himself by validating email, or after 24 hours it should happen? What's the mechanism? Okay, and then you should throw some thoughts. Okay, we can do it like this also, like that also. When you do that to and fro reasoning, you help building the right functional application. So sometimes the requirements will not be clear even functionally. So in such cases, you would need to come up with functional questions. Okay, very important. And now guys, I'm saying do this thing behind the screen even when nobody is there. Maybe after office, sit, try to come up with something. In the beginning days, this is very essential in the 0 to 3 years of experience, because that time your brain is just adapting to the industry and thought process. As you get experience, this becomes easy for you. But it happens easy only when you do it more often. Otherwise, it will not. Fine. So come up with functional questions, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. Okay. Next, point number 4. If you are a developer, ask yourself a question. Technically, high level, how will you implement this? You will grow only when you think, and these are the questions which will help you to grow. It doesn't matter what your project is right now. If you feel somewhere you need to improve, start following this already. Okay, simple. Just ask this a question: how will I implement this in a best possible manner? And guys, let me tell you, there is no one right solution. Just that your approach should be logical. It should make sense. Now just ask a question: how would you like to implement this feature? Okay. Now the requirement could get complicated. Like actually, I wanted to discuss one of the requirement today. Okay, and let's see if time permits, we'll touch it today only, or we will move it to next day. But in the requirements, you have to always think about, we discussed this, okay? We have to always think about how many services should be involved. Okay, in our project, we have like 20 plus services, 30 plus services, we have 50 plus repositories. Okay, now in so many systems, right, so many services, how many services are going to talk to one another? Because every service has a designated purpose. Yesterday we said login is going to talk to email service for shooting email. Very simple. Okay, so like that, every service will have a different role in the system. Okay, now the thing is, you need to now first logically ask yourself a question: how many services will involve and what will be their role in this implementation? And generally this you can represent it with a service diagram. It is nothing much, guys. Again, simple. Okay, in a simple paint application, or there is draw.io or lucid chart, some application will be there where simply you just have to put some boxes in place. Okay, like one box for service 1, for this service will call this service, and this service will call to database, and then DB, and then response will be coming. We will be further summarizing response, calling the service 3, and then accordingly response 4 will be going back. Okay, Nothing but how many services will involve. That comes as part of your high level technical flow. How many services will be involved, where the database will be involved. NoSQL versus SQL. You might have both the databases in the system, SQL versus NoSQL. Where you are going to implement caching. If there is a async processor. Is there a cron job involved? Sometimes requirement will be cron job requirement. Keep repeating. Daily at the same fixed time, repeated work should happen. So talk about that. Nothing but all of that is nothing but high level technical things. Like how are you going to get the system done? Okay. We are not even thinking low level. ये सब high level में connectivity की बातचीत is happening right now. ठीक है? Fine, well and good. So along with that, the other things like security tokens that will be taken care by framework itself. You have to plug in the right interceptors at the right places. If your project is the old project, those kind of interceptors will already be in place, but generally you have to think about the security related part as well. Okay, fine. Next, if you are exposing APIs to real world. Okay, now let me stop my screen share. I'll show you one quick diagram. Just be along, guys. Just let the thoughts run in so that you will get a perspective of thinking. Okay, so paintbrush, sharing the screen, because this is a day-to-day conversation in the projects. Okay, so sharing the screen. Fine. Now let's say something like this. You have written, let's say, one service. Okay, service one, whatever that name could be. Okay, controllers, there is a term like aggregators. Okay, controllers will be there, service layers will be there, aggregators will be there, helper classes will be there. Okay, so different things will be there. Now let's say there is one service. Okay, this service is going to expose REST endpoints for invocations. Right? If you are developing a basic application, it contains UI and server. The server basically will be hosted in your system and it will expose APIs which will be called from client browser. Nothing but Angular or whatever React or Vue or code which you write, it will be running in the computer of the client browser. Nothing but from the outside world, from their own machines, they are going to call your service, right? Nothing but you have to always think, since your API is publicly opened, okay, somebody else might also try to hack it. Because it is publicly opened, if it can access from the browser, that means the world can hit that API. Now, when you're exposing the APIs like this, you have to be really very careful with the security mechanism. Okay, OAuth token implementation or JWT token implementation, the session management. For example, as soon as the user logs in, start a session. If the user is inactive for some time, you need to clean up the session. All of that logic has to be built up. Okay, if that is the requirement, right? But generally it always stays. We don't keep infinite sessions available. What if the browser tab is closed? The backend should clean up. So all that logic comes up. Fine. So you have to care about, one, your genuine customer trying to access should be validated and used. Second, you need to make sure from real world, if somebody is trying to hack your API, they should not be able to hack. That is one. Now there is a second thing. Generally in our projects, okay, one company might interact with another company. We have been speaking about third-party integrations. This is very common for many projects. It happens. Okay, so this is third party, some other company. It might offer paid services which needs to be used. Now there are two kind of use cases here. Understand? One is they will expose some API which you need to call and get response. So that is one use case. when you are calling their API and then you get a response. That is one use case. For many projects, second use case is available, which is notification use case or alerting. Okay, where these guys notify your service. Notify is nothing but they make an API call to your service. The third party makes an API call to the service. Nothing but now think you are the developer of this system. Okay, you are the developer of this middle system. One side you are exposing a API which will be consumed by your customer of the end user. The second is you are exposing some API which will be called by another third party company. Okay, now what will be the disciplines which needs to be applied at this layer is also very critical, and at this layer is also very critical, and the decisions could be different. Okay, for example, here when you are expecting the request to come from one particular third party, that means you already know from which IP the request is supposed to come. So first, always thumb rule encouraged whenever you are doing this kind of interaction is you need to do IP whitelisting. So ask the third party, what is your IP? Give us the maybe backup IP also, but take the IP of this person and whitelist it. Okay, if this endpoint which you are exposing should be called only from this third party machine IP only, not from the rest of the world. So everything else get cut down itself. No risk here. Okay. Now that is first step. Second step is yesterday we spoke a lot about it. All the security mechanisms here also. Public key, private key encryption. Okay, SHA-256 or SHA-512 kind of algorithms, or OAuth based tokens in order to interact. So there could be n number of ways by which you have to give, if you're calling us, you should do it based upon this one. Okay, now all of that has to be defined and then it comes in the system. Then you validate whether the right user is calling based upon OAuth mechanism. That's for security verification. And once you feel it's genuine, you process. Now there comes the question, all of this understanding should also be clear during this phase of technical analysis. Okay, all of this should be clear during this technical analysis phase itself. High level design. You think like how high level? This is how high level. Multiple pieces are there. Who is talking to the database? Who is talking to cache? Inside here, we took one service. Here, 10 services might be there. And then third parties are there. Load balancers could be there inside. How do you connect with all that? What is the security mechanism? This full big picture is nothing but high level technical design. Okay, fine. Now I'm saying whatever requirement is given to you, you alone start asking these questions to yourself. Initially in junior stage, you will not get the right thoughts, but put efforts. सोचने की कोशिश करो, guys, because this hard work which you are doing alone, next day when you are discussing it with the team, you will be able to easily understand what conversation is going. And maybe if they are not thinking something, you might be in a more comfortable position to ask questions because your brain is thinking. If you think, you will get some ideas pretty nicely. Okay, now this is how it is. You need to really get along with the technical requirement as part of your internal discussions. Okay, now comes the next thing. Technical requirements are done. Further, okay, and guys, yesterday's topic I have not yet updated in LinkedIn. Okay, but I will be doing it over weekend. Oh, it was a very hectic day today. Okay, I did not even get like 10 minutes of break from morning till evening. The project was like a lot of things happening. I did not get even a time to break or lunch ki bhi vaat lag gayi. It was a pretty tough day today. So that's where I even did not give you the Zoom link on WhatsApp because I did not get time. As simple as that. Okay, so fine. So I'll finish it over weekend. But yes, this is done. Technical high level diagram done. Okay, approach is clear in your mind. You have written the block diagram well and good. Okay, now while you are coming up with this technical, we got so many questions right now, security wise, IP whitelisting wise, credential wise, database wise, what to use, Redis, how the communication should be, what data to keep in Redis. Okay, everything. If you get any questions, and you should definitely get questions, okay, list down technical questions. Anything which is not clear to you, maintain a list of it. Okay, next, you again go ahead, identify dependencies. Okay, next, whatever you are trying to implement, check any impact analysis. What is impact analysis? Let's say if you have stayed in the system for 6 months, with every new feature that you develop, you need to make sure that old system is not breaking. That is what is impact analysis. So just check the impact of this new feature. Will it break anything else? Does any other functionality also needs to be balanced as part of this? That is what. So with more time you spend in the project, you will be able to do impact analysis. And now, okay, these all questions will be ready. Functional questions, tech related questions, you know, the dependencies, you are checking the impact. You're doing this alone for yourself, because all throughout your life you work only for yourself. You're not doing this for your project, for your client, for your company. You're doing this because your analysis skill has to improve. Guys, people will want you in their team if you work dedicatedly, and your dedication to work means you are actually growing. So you have to be a player. So don't work for anybody else, work for yourself. Work because you want to work. That's it. This exercise, maybe after office you do it, because the more you do, the more nicer your brain will think. And in front of next meetings, you will be in a more capable state. Okay? Now comes the next question. You have to do estimation. Okay? Now you know some clarity. Try to estimate the stuff. Estimate is how much time it will take to finish it. That's what is estimation. Okay, now the thing is, if you don't have clarity in this work, maybe then you are not ready to do estimation right now. Ask for the clarity first. Once you get the right questions answered, then you do the estimation. If this is clear, do it anyways. Now again, estimation ka thoda sochte. Okay, there are two type of estimates: time based and in Agile story point based. Okay, now let me talk about both. We basically do both. Okay, now because it helps to be really precise in how when the work will be finished. Now with regards to time based, you need to consider multiple factors. First, server development time. Next, server unit testing time. Next, UI dev time, UI unit testing time. Okay, now generally there is also a component, okay, UI server integration. But generally people might say, hey, along with this time that we are giving, there only we will do it. But yes, this requires additional time. Okay, fine. Next, QA test cases, QA test case execution. Nothing but for full feature to be ready, all this time has to be taken care. Guys, estimations hawa mein nahi baat karte hai. You cannot talk estimations in the air without analysis. If you tell estimation, that is where problem happens. Don't tell ki 2 days lagega, 3 days lagega. On what basis are you saying? So you need to really see server wise how much time, UI wise how much time, QA wise how much time. Guys, let me tell you, even 2 lines of code change comes up with a lot of maintenance cost. It's not simple. Just changing 2 lines is not like kar liye ho gaya matter of 2 hours. No, it needs a lot of time. Even 2 lines of code change. Like, okay, first the server guy will change it, then you do the local deployment, you test it locally. If it looks good, you raise it for the code review. If the review passes, then you merge it to the integration branch. We will discuss about branching. It goes to a different branch. From that branch, it is built and deployed for the QA. Then the tester tests it. If he gives fine, he approves it, and then it goes forward. 2 lines of code, but process is too much. And all this process basically also takes time. So generally, while you're giving estimate, you should consider this deployment, rework, bugs, and anything that might come, and then you have to give estimates. You cannot just talk in the air. Because it's never 2 hours work. It takes more time because it comes up with a list of activities. Okay, fine. So in your estimate, somehow consider this kind of stuff also. But now you need to say all of these factors. Let's say server development time 2 days, unit testing time, let's say 1 day, UI dev time, let's say 1.5 days, UI unit testing time, let's say 1 day, server UI integration, let's say 3 hours, QA test case writing, let's say 6 hours, QA test case execution, let's say 1 day, okay, or 1.5 days, whatever. Now what has happened? Just see, everybody is discussing this. Now you just have to sum up. So kitna ho gaya guys? 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, 6 days plus ye yahan pe 5 plus 5, let's say 7 days, 3 hours, something around that. 7 days, 3 hours. This is called as man hours time. Means if one person is doing this feature end to end, it is going to take 7 days, 3 hours. It is man hours. Then basically during calculation, you will see, okay, so we give you one UI developer, we give you one server developer, we give you one QA. They will all work on these things parallelly. So by working in parallel, maybe in 3 days, the feature will be ready. But estimate is that much. If they work parallelly, in this much time, the work will be finished. That's what the feature can be completed in 3 days, provided 3 resources are applied for this feature. Nothing but this becomes the total time it takes for finishing one feature. Now that is the detailed level of estimation you should provide. If in your project, people are saying unit testing, we don't have to do it. Okay, fine, remove it. But it is like very much required. But it is depending upon your project. Fine, escape it. Server time, UI time, integration time, QA test case execution. Fine, all these things, good. Now comes, so you estimate this, all happy. Now comes the next phase, story pointing. Okay, first I'm asking you guys to do this entire exercise alone in your beginning days, not along with others, because you will make mistakes, and allow yourself to make mistakes. But once you go through this exercise and then you start getting into further meetings where your team members will be doing discussion, you will be more prepared for that. You will ask the right questions, you will understand what they are saying, because you already have invested time in understanding these things. That's where you will start catching the pace. Okay, and just you have to do it for like 1 month and you start becoming good at this. Okay, and that's how you become great. Fine, so estimation is done. Now you know 7 दिन लगेगा भाई, साथ में काम करेंगे तो it will take around 3 days parallel working. Okay, all good. Next comes story pointing. The need of story pointing I'll cover differently. First, I'll just tell what is story point. In Agile, estimations, they say, can be even derived not based upon this time factor, but based upon a numerical value. And generally, a best practices, or like many projects adopt Fibonacci. Okay, Fibonacci series, which starts with 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. Fibonacci. Nothing but this kind of a number should be assigned to every requirement. Okay, now why this number? So basically, the thing is, let's say in that sprint or in that 2 weeks, you're working on 5 features. Every feature will have some number like this assigned. Let's say 5. Okay, 5. Now let's say feature 2 is like 3 story points feature. Feature 3 is, let's say, 8 story point feature. Okay, feature 4 is a smaller one, let's say 1 story point feature. Feature 5, let's say, takes again 1 story point feature, something. Okay, Now, basically, how work of a team is measured in Agile is they sum up all these things and then they say the team velocity is this much. Nothing but the team per sprint can deliver these many number of story points. So 8, 9, 10, and then 8. So like 18 story points is the velocity of the team. Nothing but if you keep working sprint by sprint, they will say generally, okay, so team deliverable is like 18. Okay, fine. Now let me tell you how to calculate story point. This is big time confusion in the IT industry. There are, okay, what Agile says, it says, okay, but there are some things not clear. They say, okay, story point is relative estimation. Means given one feature, if you have in the past given a 5 story point of work for that feature, a similar kind of story today you are getting, so give 5. It says relative estimation. They're not asking you to be precise. Agile is saying talk a bit vague. Don't try to be very much perfect. That's how Agile says. And like that's how these numbers come up. But ideally, what we realized is if you don't get into this kind of thinking, your story pointing is not going to have much sense because people will be confused. 3 dena hai, 5 dena. Because on what basis are they telling this number? And not everybody is good in relatively comparing the weightage of this ticket with an existing ticket. Especially juniors ko to blank jata hai, bhai kya bolna hai? They just say 3. And like Q3, everybody is saying 3 na to 3. Arey, literally this happens. Because that analysis itself is missing. Okay, so now there is a nice structure by which you should story point. At least start applying it for yourself. Okay, story point is composed based upon 3 factors. Agile has defined these 3 factors. Okay, first factor is the time which it takes. Second, the complexity that comes with it. Third, the risk that comes with it. 3 factors. Okay, for example, even though let's say you say 7 days, 3 hours of work in time, but you say it is a complicated ticket. So we would like to consider some point even for complexity. Why? Because you are saying complex, it means it is possible that you might not be able to meet at this time also. There is risk, there is complexity here. Some things might delay also because there is complexity. So ek weightage बढ़ जाता है automatically. Next, risk. For example, do you see that there will be any risk in accomplishing this kind of a feature? Maybe some dependencies are not resolved or some environments are not coming. If you feel that risk is there in the feature, even give some points for that. So considering these 3, you have to name it, but how do you do it? Simple. Time estimate. Okay, our way of doing it is simple. Time estimate. You take how much total man hours will be required. 7 days, 3 hours. Basically divide that by 2. Okay, so then 7 days, 3 hours ho jata hai, roughly around 3 days. So 3. Then complexity. How much complex you feel that this requirement is. If it is not complex, it becomes 0. If you feel slight complex, you make it 0.5. If you feel more complex, you make it 1. And if you feel more complex, make it 1.5. It is up to you. It's just like rating a Swiggy ka food. 1 to 5 star dena hai, de do jo de lagta. So look at the complexity. If it is complex, give a number to it. Okay, maybe 0.5 complexity. Okay, next, do you see any risk is there? So here you say, no, everything is clear. We don't see any risk. We will be able to meet it. Sometimes if the team is not aware of that technology, that is a risky one then. If some POC or something is happening, nobody knows how to do it. That means it is having high level of risk. You cannot estimate. Risk is so high, you are like, pata nahi, right? That is all problem. So risk accordingly will be like even like whatever is the risk. Okay. So let's say here you say no risk. Happy. So then these numbers then tally up what it comes like 3.5. And generally you have to manage it to the nearest available Fibonacci number. So 3.5 means 3 story points of work. If it comes maybe 4, then it is up to you whether to choose a 3 or whether to choose a 5. If it comes 6, then it is up to you, you choose a 5. Because guys, the Fibonacci is a universal pattern which talks about the nature of something. So if the ticket is 7, Fibonacci is saying कि भाई उसको 8 दे दो because you don't know there might be something more hidden inside it. If the ticket is coming like 9, Fibonacci is saying 9 नहीं, उसको 8 में निपटा. Otherwise, if there is more complex, let it go to 13. But this is a universal pattern of which just works basically. It's a universal pattern. That's where Agile guys have just blindly applied. There are multiple ways, but widely used one is the Fibonacci number. Okay, fine. Now, my suggestion to all you guys in the beginning days of your projects, alone do this activity every single day for every requirement that is groomed. You might be wrong, you might be 100% wrong, but that is also an advantage because you have done all this exercise. You have something in your mind which you were not having before this exercise. Next, what happens, this discussion happened with the product as part of the requirement gathering phase first. Okay, then internally the team is also going to do the later discussion. We call it internally in our team as internal grooming. The discussions will happen either in internal grooming or during sprint planning. Somewhere further discussions will happen. Now, if you have already done this background story, you will be a more value add member in those discussions. And that's it. From there onwards, your life will start clicking. Why? Because now your brain is thinking, you're asking the right questions. If people are missing something, you are telling them, hey, what about this? What about that? If something is not clear to you, you are logically questioning the system. You're logically questioning the requirement. If there are dependencies, you know the dependencies also. If people are forgetting, you are pointing it. And the more you do it in front of everybody in the meeting, it feels like, come on, this is the guy. Okay? And guys, it's nothing wrong about it. So you have to be that important person in the team who can really solve the problems. And the more you do it, you start becoming better. Okay, fine. We have 5 minutes. Now let's talk further. Okay. Now all this is done. And then the day one of the sprint comes where all of this work is going to be very nicely sorted. Now on the day one of the sprint, okay, there is one thing. I already said during the beginning of the call, like full sprint work would be finalized. Full sprint work will be finalized. So different teams follow a different approach. They might simply say, okay, we want to do this 8 features in this sprint. And these 8 features, they might break down into small items like UI task, server task, and they just put everything somewhere in Jira. I'll show you those things also where it is available, but they call it like sprint backlog. Okay, so in the sprint backlog, they just break down the feature as small items. Okay, feature, so every feature is having UI, server, QA. They break it down into smaller items and just make it available. Okay, now how the team works is some form of teams. They say whenever a developer is available, let's say a server developer. So in the grooming, everybody were there, right? So this is a dynamic system. The server developer comes, picks up next available server task, starts implementing it. Once it is done, takes it on further to the next one or to the next phases. So that means it's pretty dynamic. A UI member comes, picks up his task, finishes it. After that, maybe if the server guy is ready, integrates it. If not ready, picks up another UI task, continues. So that is one model in which there is always work in the backlog. And whenever the team is available, they take a feature and they finish it. Dynamic coordination all throughout the 2 weeks. Now, there is another way which we are following in our project. Okay. And that way is on the day one of the sprint itself, we assign clear-cut requirements to people. For example, right now I'm able to see Shenu. Okay, I'm able to see Achal. Okay, so let's say if these two guys are the developer of my team, let's say Shenu is a UI developer and Achal is a server developer. I have 8 features. So I might decide, okay, Shenu is going to work on these 2 UI features. Achal is going to work on this, let's say 1 server feature. And then I might have more developers and the QA in my team. So then I would be like, okay, so let's say Yogesh is available. Okay, so Yogesh is going to work on, let's say, these 2 features. Nothing but during the day one of the sprint, we are identifying who should be working on what ticket. And I think that's really very good, because there will be no confusion. 2 weeks stuck, you dedicatedly focus on these tickets, and I think that is the right way. And we have been doing it since a very long time. But some teams follow a dynamic way also, but it depends. But I personally feel this way is good, because day one of the sprint, every team member is clear what their feature is, because every feature might have open questions, might have dependencies. If you already know that that is your tickets, you can work and get your problem sorted. If you are not aware of it, people comes and randomly there will be more problems here. Why? Because those open questions, nobody is solving it, and then you might just never pick that ticket, and dependencies might be staying unresolved. So, but if you do it like this, it will be more better for you and your system as well. Okay? So fine, guys. This is what I wanted to say. These are few basic disciplines. Every time do it for every ticket, and you will start evolving as a IT professional, because not many people are doing it. Let me tell you guys, when I was starting my IT career at junior level, as well as when I started leading teams, the beginning time, like 8 people, 10 people, 15 people. So I had to do a lot of hard work behind the screen, maybe outside my office hours. Weekend mein I used to sit for 4 5 hours, and I used to plan for the entire team. Okay, next 1 week mein what is the full team going to do? That kind of background efforts and preparation is required if you really want to succeed at your job. Okay, and you do it for yourself. In the end, I got rewarded, right? Because I was able to do my project very smoothly with my people, and then more promotion comes and everything, things working out for you, because you are ready to put that effort. So guys, this thing, you do it for yourself, you will start becoming that A player which you want to become. And just sitting and asking questions is not going to help you. Okay, fine. So let me share the attendance and absorb the statement. It's already available in YouTube as well. Basic practices, but these things will change your life completely. Okay, attendance. And then that use case which we were talking about of converting big requirement into implementation based items. Okay, we are going to discuss that. I personally feel it is going to be very useful for a lot of people, because there we will talk about scope, there we will talk about breaking the bigger items into smaller implementable items. Okay, so all of those things we are going to discuss. Okay, pasting the code for today. What is a bucket? Okay, I don't know. The bucket, it will be a referential context. There is a bit bucket as a repository, or generally people use this saying, okay, put it in your bucket. That means put it in your to-do list. Okay, so that's what it is. So you maintain, so for example, Krishna, put it in your bucket. So that means I'm just saying, hey Krishna, have it with you. That's what it is. So it's just a terminology, just a way of communication at times. Okay, कि भाई Shenu, or put it on your plate. I just tell, hey Shenu, put this item on your plate. That means I'm asking Shenu to track this item and get the work done. Okay, okay guys, and all of these is available in YouTube's, all the videos available. Go through it multiple times, guys. Whatever I'm speaking, it is based upon 12 years of lot of ups and downs in industry, and then we realize this is the right way, and it really works like smooth. Okay, chalo, mark the attendance, and next we will meet next week. The primary focus of next week is we will take one practical use case, a big project, practical use case, end-to-end feature, and then we will try to break it down into smaller items. How do you scope this project? How do you break it down? And this you can apply to the tasks that you do. The same approach, similar approach. We'll break down, then we will see how as a developer you will do multiple implementations for that. What do you do in your local? How do you interact with UI server, QA members, and then really take the piece till the production environment. From tech perspective, we'll touch all of that. And then there will be some topics where we will touch coding as well. And further, we will be, even as the session goes on, we will touch on more corporate related inputs for success. Plus, then there is going to be corporate communication related few inputs coming up. So there is a lot. Just come with a dedication to learn and grow. okay, and upgrade yourself. Fine. Enjoy your Friday, everybody. Enjoy your Friday. Have a nice weekend and see you guys straight away on Monday 9 p.m. Okay. Thanks. Bye bye. Take care, everyone.